and she is a YouTuber who espouses some pretty controversial views.
Does she?
Blah, blah, blah.
I have to say my take on Pearl is very agnostic. She doesn't really grind my gears as you would expect her to.
I want to beat her ass.
Why?
I feel, and I know I have a lower tolerance maybe than you for like, I mean, it depends really. It really varies. But sometimes I don't have an issue with anything she really says. But I just find her to be such a like insufferable nerd.
Yeah, well, that's really why people are piling on her.
That it makes me feel a strong like bullying impulse.
Yeah, you want to push her into a locker. Well, at least
I
you're being
kick
honest.
her ass. I want to be, but she, I found out is like 6'1" and like a volleyball player.
Yeah,
so she'd crush
pounds.
me easily. She's obese.
Yeah, she's like that Shrek princess. But no, I have no hostility toward her, and I can even appreciate that she's doing her thing and stacking those shekels. I said this to Tacos.
I got a ton.
I was like, I'm getting old and soft. Like, I feel like I have brain worms because I have like no reaction to Pearl and everybody really hates her and I just don't get it. And I'm kind of like happy for anyone who's getting that paper. And he was like, welcome to being old.
Right.
I think this is just like an age differential.
Maybe, but I mean, I feel like she's just espousing these truisms that her audience is just eager to kind of hear.
Yeah,
it's the pandering.
Yeah, she's telling people what they want to hear, like
which is like women are whores, women are blah.
Disaffected young men get to feel like they have a based woman whisperer who's telling them the truth about women that they already knew. And disaffected females get to feel like they're not like the other girls.
Right.
Because they agree with her. And it's like, it reminds me like of one of Curtis Yarvin's best lines that I'm going to proceed to butcher, that there's actually not much money or glory in telling the truth. But if you can be like 10% wrong, it's actually pretty lucrative.
Well said.
And that's what,
yeah.
I mean, that's what she is. Like, people are like, oh, it's a grift. It's like, well, everything's a grift now because on the internet, everything is scrubbed of nuance and subtlety, which is not a judgment call on my part. It's just like a description of how it is. So like the people that ultimately rise to the top, like Tate level, are people who say things in really kind of simple ways that appeal to the lowest common denominator. They just cast a wider net.
Yeah, she had some take about how women are more attractive when they're 25.
Which is true for her.
35. Well, she's 26.
Yeah, but all of this discourse really centers on the fact...
She's not looking too good.
Well, yeah, she's like a hard 26. She's like very frumpy and dowdy. And all of the hate centers on the fact that she's not a very attractive female.
Mm-hmm.
So
which she admits to. She like self-identifies as like mid.
So like to promote yourself as like an anti-feminist whistleblower while not looking like Ava Gobbledygook seems like an affront to many people. But I actually think that her branding or styling is very much like 100% intentional.
You think she's a mastermind?
I don't think she's a mastermind, but I think she subconsciously understands that it'll work for her and she'll be able to carve out a niche because everybody's so manicured and cultivated now.
Right.
And I think like half her audience hates her and half her audience pities her, in part because the other half hates her. And it's like a perfect recipe for success.
So, I can't. I hate her not for what she says, but how she says it.
Right, exactly. But she knows that and she's playing to that. That's her strength.
But even as like a media personality, she's very... we can barely tell. Like she can barely get the words out.
Yeah.
Yeah, lack of charisma can be fatal, you know, and I have very
Yeah, but
for
like,
women, and that's me. You know, look at me. I'm the real misogynist.
okay, hear me out. In spite of her being unmarried and childless and apparently also dating a black guy or having dated a black guy, she's much more in line with what a real trad wife would look like versus all these other female influencers. Like real trad wives look like
shit.
Yeah, they look like cashiers at the Amish market or like Mormon polygamy child brides, because the presumption is that if you're really a trad wife and you're about that life, which is to say you're about your family and your man, you don't have the time to be like narcissistically preoccupied with your image. I think it's a very smart strategy.
But she's not a trad wife.
She's not, but she styles herself in the image of like the trad wife meme. Like she always wears like the floral patterned button down dresses and has like the stringy hair, like the drugstore curling iron curls, like clumpy mascara, but otherwise makeupless face. And she looks like I said this on Twitter, she looks like a Dutch master's painting of a woman, like a Vermeer or a Halls or something.
That's giving her
I mean, she looks like an historical archetype.
I wouldn't paint that. I wouldn't paint that bitch with your paintbrush.
But people did.
She's distinct. She doesn't have any, like, she's not, I don't know. Maybe I'm coping. Maybe I'm jealous of her.
I mean, I think overall,
and I
the
can't
Pearl
handle
discourse
her harsh truths.
Is bad to the degree that all like shitty like meme discourse is bad, but it's also good because it really brought out all the catty 36 to 38-year-old women with like 10 pounds of makeup who carry around one of those like selfie light rings with them at all times. And people were really like clowning on her and calling her ugly and like dumpy and doing the thing that women do where they like compare themselves openly to another woman, which is bad news. It's a bad look when you have like some news anchor or like Instagram influencer
being like, actually 35 is amazing. But you know, women are amazing pilled also. I'm in my feminist era, so I'm a little like, I'm like, women are just amazing. Okay?
I can't lean into the rad femme bit too hard, even though I'm increasingly coming around to it, because every time I complain about men or women, lesser, pettier minds speculate that I'm talking about my life.
Well, live your truth, girl. Yeah. Take a page out of Pearl's book. And
her other strategy, which is, frankly, a strategy we've leaned on in the past and continue to lean on, is like, I watched a segment of her interviewing Nick Fuentes, and she's really good at playing dumb. I mean, she may or may not actually be dumb, but who knows? She's at least savvy and clever enough to have built a massive platform for herself. And in this segment with Nick Fuentes, she's like interviewing him and being like, so like, what is Zionism? And what is the Holocaust?
She's just like me for real.
Yeah. And she just really asks very simple, pointed questions and doesn't betray any of her own knowledge.
Right. Well, that's really, I do believe in the kind of Jungian diagnosis of whenever you really can't stand someone, it's because you see something in them that reminds you of something in yourself that you find intolerable. So obviously there's something with...
What do you think it is?
I don't know. I guess like, I'm kind of like, me and Anna are the pick-me's around here.
Yeah, it's because we're annoying nerd
I've been saying
pick-me's.
Women shouldn't... Yeah, I'm an annoying nerd pick-me who like has been saying women shouldn't vote or whatever.
And now you feel a little bad because you actually put some effort into maintaining some sort of image. Unlike Pearl.
But she is putting a ton of effort into maintaining her image. You mean physically?
Yeah.
Well, I'm an indie actress.
Her image is like the McDonald's like grimace shake.
Yeah, if she's in some valley where like if she was a little bit more like me, I'd maybe like her more, and if she was a little bit less like me, I might like her more, but she's hitting this this midpoint where I find her midpoint.
You asked a good question on Twitter. You said, do you think her truth telling would be more palatable if she was better looking?
Real question, not a...
No, that's a good question. I thought about it. Palatable, probably. Successful, maybe not.
Yeah.
Because, again, contrast her against somebody like Ava Gobbledygook, who is very hot and pretty in like a polished, curated, basic bitch Instagram influencer way. And everybody who has half a brain cell can see right through her and see that she's basically a glorified online prosty, which also more power and respect.
We love that about
that's
her.
no shade.
Yeah.
And
get your bag, girl. That's fine.
What I've learned with age is that like you have to accept people as they are. And like the best thing about people is like when they are being themselves, which is why a lot of women like miss the mark, or people miss the mark, because they're trying to be something they're not.
Yeah, but I also, part of it is I don't really buy it. There's like an increasing, in my limited exposure to Pearl, it seems like kind of she's reaching, you know, and every day she's coming out with some take about this and that, how women aren't as good at anything as men are, just like stuff that's very like flagrant and kind of like designed to provoke, and I don't want to take the bait.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you should like not want to be manipulated. That's
I don't want to be manipulated.
Yeah.
And I sense that streak in her and despise it.
Yeah, I mean, it is like a sad indictment of like how you make your way in the culture is like by provoking
like lowest
rage
common
baiting
denominator.
people.
Yeah, and just pandering to like men who just want to hate women. So
and she had a take today about kind of the falsity and folly of churches and preachers, where they talk about male sin but conveniently ignore female sin, and that really does pander to like the disgruntled, disaffected male view that like, you know, they're like fond of talking about how civilization was ruined because women went on OnlyFans, and divorces, 70% of divorces are initiated by women, and that kind of thing. And it really is like making women the villain, which is, I mean, people have accused us of doing that, let's be real.
Like, well, sure,
yeah, we've definitely done it. We
haven't like quite digested like manosphere talking points.
Yeah, I just like rationally, like functionally don't believe that women are to blame. should drive.
No, I don't think women did anything.
Are solely to blame. That's preposterous.
Of course, it's, if you want a patriarchy as much as you claim to, then that begins with like taking some responsibility for how out of control you let these broads get.
Right, you have to
who did
provide
it?
Leadership. But of course, men don't want to do that, understandably, because they get nothing in return. That's the argument. So we're like in a weird Chinese finger trap impasse.
Yeah.
I saw her like on Fox News or something talking to like a panel where she was talking about how women don't like drive sanitation trucks and don't fix the plumbing and don't build the roads, so therefore they don't have an equal stake in society. And I mean, it's like the Yarvin thing again. She's saying things that are like 75% true, but the 25% part that's inaccurate is the part that's the meaningful and nuanced part that she conveniently leaves out. And that's how she makes her bread and butter.
Yeah. I mean, I think women are better film editors in general.
Yeah, maybe even... Yeah, better editors in general, better.
That's something
better
I think women actually really excel at. I think, there's just as we've said over and over, but the lack of nuance, the sort of, I think a real anti-feminism. She goes to great lengths to kind of acknowledge sex difference, but stops short of any like real insights.
Right. Because there can be no analysis, because that's how she's going to lose people. And like, also, when you say something like, well, women don't drive the garbage trucks and they don't lay the roads and therefore they don't deserve an equal stake in society, you're leaving out the part that traditionally women played an equal and complementary role in the functioning of society.
Yeah. And as a Christian, she should sort of understand that there's a whole tradition of like complementarianism.
Yeah. The other like nice and positive thing I will say about Pearl, since I'm in like old lady zen mode, is that she's very young.
She's not that young.
She's 26. So there's still time for her to amend her views and go the rad femme route, as all conservative females seem to do anyway.
She's not that young. Really?
Yeah, but she's young enough to be like retarded and confused.
That's very charitable. I think like your brain's developed by the time
like
you're
your general
in your
personality and
mid-20s.
general viewpoint should probably be like calcified by 26.
Yeah.
Like your general attitude toward the world.
Yeah.
Is there.
I don't think she'll change. I think she's too much of like, there's an Aspergian kind of like, she's flinchy and weird and I want to kick her ass. That's really what
I
it
get
is.
it, but this is like the basis of derangement syndrome. As I've said many times on this pod, like, again, when I was younger and more naive, I had this very classically liberal view that like you should debate a person's merits based on their deeds and actions. Like in the case of Donald Trump, you have to look at his policy and compare it to other presidents versus like spurging out about his toxic personality. But in the last analysis, I realized that the libs were actually right because they're responding again to the force of his personality and not to anything he ever did as like a policymaker.
Right.
So the effect that she has on you is like probably...
Well, she doesn't do anything.
It's an organic reaction.
Yeah.
And therefore it's like fair and true.
I can't help it.
Yeah.
But she doesn't do anything. She exists merely as like a media personality. Yeah. There's no deeds by which we can
damning condemnation of Red Scare podcast.
She's on our turf, and we.
You make movies and I make babies.
She's more
so
popular than us. When we put in so much work developing this nuanced world of you.
Well, the interesting thing is like
of...
she's shared the stage with people like Andrew Tate and Nick Fuentes, who are like really harsh critics of women and will not hesitate to call a bitch like ugly and expired.
Yeah.
And they will break bread with her because she's like on their level of influencer. So that's like both a reassuring and a depressing point.
And I have come around on Andrew Tate. At first, I also hated him for his like subdued weakness and like flinchy nerddom.
Yeah.
But now I kind of value him as an entertainer and will like stop on the Instagram reels that are like algorithmically fed to me and be like, haha.
Well, he like took
so maybe I'll come around on Pearl too.
Yeah, the longer somebody stays around and the more familiar they become, the more you're like inclined to just accept them. It's like people who worm their way into your social circle. But he like chose the opposite tack of Pearl, which is like remaking his former flinch nerd self into like a power bottom.
Islam.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like an Islamic Chad or whatever. And people can still see through it to his weakness. But like, it's like what I said about Jordan Peterson. Again, people like come up with all these excuses to make fun of him, that he's like a Nazi or a fascist from the left, or that he's like a boomer and a doxer from the right. And all of this has a kernel of truth to it, I suppose, but
they just hate him because he's corny.
They hate him because he's a corny, gay, lachrymose nerd who like cries too much and is too sincere.
Yeah.
And people have this impulse when they hear his Kermit the Frog voice, they want to push him into a locker. I get it.
I definitely do.
But it's also reassuring to me as like a massive gay nerd that there's a place for gay nerds in the cosmos. It takes all kinds.
There really is.
Yeah.
You're not as much of a gay nerd as Jordan Peterson.
No, I fuck and wear knee-high boots.
Exactly. You're cool.
But I get it. And also, like, the other thing with Pearl is, like, who knows what's going to happen to her in, like, 2 or 4 years. I mean, she'll probably write a book on that right-wing press that courted us when we first started the podcast.
People are dying for the Why Feminism is Bad book.
Yet another,
And it really, it doesn't, I want something new ideas. I want a real hot take.
Yeah.
And she's not really delivering.
What do you think the new frontier of like takesmanship is going to be? Because we've kind of like run out of steam. Like we have the manosphere, we have like rad feminism.
I think there's going to be a synthesis of the two.
Islam.
Of Christianity and Islam. It's
Race,
called
communism.
Yeah. It's a whole new thing.
We need like a new Ayan Hirsi Ali Muslim who has aggressively turned their back on Islam.